Zachary Allen. Thank you for hanging out today. Untitled. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be off the beaten path for, I guess, my normal content. But this is kind of, it's off the beaten path based on what we've been doing. But this is kind of stuff like this is going to happen from time to time. I'm excited to talk about these things. I actually have some notes today to talk about these things because they're kind of important things. But as always, we must get to our sponsor, the people putting together this beautiful studio so that we can record today. Today's sponsor, wood. Burn it, carve stuff out of it, build a house or maybe even a boat. The versatility of wood at a home store near you. Good stuff. Thank you to Wood, our sponsor today. I actually have recently been doing some woodworking myself. I'm trying to build a platform on my treadmill so that I can put my keyboard and mouse on it. I've got my computer hooked up to a TV down here so that way I can edit podcasts while I'm doing some cardio. Little two for one, just saying. Freaking crazy stuff going on in this world today. Yeah, like every person making a podcast in America right now. Like I'm kind of getting sick of talking about how crazy things are. But dude, they just keep getting crazier. So a few of the things I kind of want to talk about today, and we'll turn it off maybe at this point. I hope you stick around and listen. I'm going to try to make this interesting, but I'm also going to try to talk about this from like just a normal person standpoint. I'm not going to try to make myself look like some sort of authority. I just want to talk about these things that have been going on in my head because I think a lot of us are asking these freaking questions and there's no one to answer them, and the experts can't answer them. No one can answer them because, well, shit, they're hard. They're hard questions. So we're going to talk about Putin interviewing or getting interviewed by Tucker. Freaking 100 million views in less than 24 hours. Like, are you kidding me? That's got to be some kind of a record. And look, this isn't to be like, oh, it's only getting views because it's Putin and everyone wants to hear it. It's like, no, this was actually a really, really good interview. And I would encourage anyone to go listen to it to actually hear this man speak. Tucker does a good job. He gives a little preface before. I want to talk about that and I'll circle back around to it. There's a couple quotes, some things that he mentions, almost like this vision that he has of global unity. And I kind of want to know, like, who is actually running our country after watching that. I want to talk about what I believe is probably one of the most controversial things that has happened in America in a long time. And that's saying something considering all the crazy controversial stuff that has happened. But I want to talk about the Crumbley verdict. And should a parent be held legally liable for the actions of their kids? Now, I'll talk a little bit about the case and try to explain it as best as I can. But look, like I said, I'm talking about this stuff like the average Joe. I'm not coming to you with a million things. I just kind of made some quick notes here so that way I at least don't say anything that is just absolutely categorically false. I want to be kind of on top of things with that. And dude, Elon put a chip in somebody's head. So like Neuralink is actually happening. And I think that's pretty freaking scary. We're there. We're putting things in people's heads now. So, look, like I said, I think these things are really important and I want to talk about things that are important to me because I'm just an average person. And I think that there's not a lot of people actually voicing these things out there. We might talk about it in the privacy of our home, but to actually talk about these things out loud, these are things that I'm genuinely struggling with at this time. Like thought-provoking questions from this interview. The whole Crumbley verdict thing in general, like, is it good? Is it bad? And then the AI thing with Elon. It's not necessarily that I want to talk about that. I just wanted to mention it because it's like, how does that get buried in the news? Like, we're getting to the point where so much crazy stuff is going on that this stuff barely moves the needle. Like it's just mentioned in the mainstream news. They're not really talking a whole lot about the Tucker Putin stuff. Some of the mainstream journalism aren't talking about it. I mean, giving some information about it. Hopefully they're just reporting. Like the best thing I could really say is don't go read anything about it. Just go watch it. Go spend 2 hours and watch it. If you don't have 2 hours, break it up. So let's start here. First off, he gives a little bit of a context to it. And I think that it's really important that you listen to that and understand what he means by that, because otherwise it does seem like he asks him a question and he immediately tries to obfuscate. But as it goes on and you start to understand, why he's giving the background on it. And look, I don't want to get into the political stuff about it. That's not why I found it fascinating. I found it fascinating because I think that we view in America the Russian culture as like this group of hardened, angry white skinheads almost. It's like we view them as Nazis because they've done a really good job of portraying them that way. And when you actually hear this man that we've been told is this harsh, ruthless leader, and you hear him talk and he sounds like a poet almost. And look, was he putting a certain image of himself out there? Absolutely. I'm not saying that I'm sitting here drinking the Kool-Aid and I'm saying Vladimir Putin is amazing. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is I think we deeply misunderstand that we're all just human beings, and we all at our core express a set of values of what it means to be human. And it was a humanizing interview for Vladimir Putin. And I think that it's important to remember that we are all still humans. He even brings up something in the interview about actions that were taken by a certain individual and him questioning the humanity of that particular person, given the brutality of the actions done by said person, and just him wrestling with that in general. What really stood out to me was a question that Tucker asked him. And I don't have the question verbatim written down here, but I have the quote pretty much verbatim written down. I tried to just type it out while I was listening to it. So I might have missed a few words. I'm not the best typer. But Tucker essentially asks him, how do you reconcile the fact that you see yourself as a so-called Christian and the leader that you are, the leadership style that you have, kind of the image that is portrayed of you? And he goes into some other stuff, but then Tucker brings it back and kind of asks it again. And Putin answers him. He says, as for religion in general, it is not about external manifestations. It is not about going to church every day or banging your head on the floor. It is in the heart, and our culture is so human-oriented. I thought that was beautiful the way that he said that. And then it's so funny because as soon as he said that, I go, man, that sounds like something out of a Dostoevsky novel that I've listened to. And then he immediately goes into talking about how Dostoevsky did a brilliant job of talking about what it meant to have a Russian soul. They're like a people of brutal warriors with poet hearts. They're like hopeless romantics in a way, is kind of like the way that I look at it. And yeah, that's not to excuse everything that's happened. I'm not over here. Look, I'm going to say this one last time because I don't want to have to keep like reiterating that I'm not taking a side here. I'm just putting information out there and giving my take on it and how I've kind of struggled with this. Like this is this internal struggle of it. I've been told my whole life that this person is a bad person. I've been told my whole life that this country is a bad country. I've been told my whole life that they want to see the downfall of America. I've watched the Yuri Bezmenov interview where he talks about the Russian plans and the Kremlin's design to take down America. But I don't get the vibe that that is the leadership that is there now. If he is acting, he's doing a pretty darn good job. But it's just the idea that he says there that and he's speaking specifically about the Russian culture is so human oriented. He goes further into that, and the quote continues. He says, Western society is more pragmatic. Russian people think more about the eternal, about moral values. I don't know. Maybe you want to agree. Maybe you won't agree with me, but Western culture is more pragmatic. I'm not saying it's bad. It makes for the golden billion to be able to achieve good success and production, even in science and so on. So a couple of things stood out to me there. One, I think he's correct in that we tend to do what is more pragmatic, or have at least historically, and we're no longer acting in that manner. And he's pointing at essentially the breakdown of American. What this is a greater reference to him alluding to the fact that there's a breakdown in the Western culture, and the United States is like the center of Western culture, and that he's essentially saying that we're more concerned with what we believe to be moral values. And so Tucker then kind of presses him on it and asks him, well, do you see God at work in the world? And Putin answers, no, to be honest. I don't think so. My opinion is, to be honest, that the development of the world community is in accordance with inherent laws, and those laws are what they are, and it has always been this way with mankind. Essentially arguing that there is this inherent moral value that we all as humans know to be true and right, and that America is pushing up against it, is what he's essentially saying. And he's not wrong. Look, you think that the rest of the world looks at America and just goes, yeah, that's all looking good. No, they can see what's going on. Like, they can see the breakdown of our culture, and that breakdown of our culture is leading to a breakdown of our society in general. And like, that's really where I feel like I wanted to draw this to. I don't want it to be necessarily about the political beliefs that you have of whether you like Tucker or don't like Tucker, or like Putin or don't like Putin, or, you know, you support Trump or Biden or whatever, or RFK. Like, it doesn't matter about that. The bigger story here, the bigger picture here, the thing that blows my mind here is that he sounds logical. He sounds like it makes sense. Like, I agree with him in that this has to stop at some point. Like, where is the line that we get to with this, that we go back to the pragmatic approach that we've had for a long time? The other thing that stuck out to me here is what he refers to as the golden billion. And I had to think about that a little bit, but basically what he's saying is, in these power countries, the populations add up to approximately 1 billion people that have it better than everybody else on the planet, of approximately 8 billion people. And he's saying that, you know, Western culture has brought the ability for this to happen, but it's not changing in the correct way. It's changing in a way that is breaking down the culture rather than building it up now. And he hit the nail on the head. I would encourage you to go and listen to this interview. I personally think that the topics that they talked about are relevant to everyone. He asked some very important questions, like, why, as America, do we have our thumb over there in the pudding of Eastern Europe while we have one of the biggest border crises in the world going on? We're $33 trillion in debt. And on top of that, like, we're blocking our own political system. Like, our own political system is blatantly being corrupted in front of us. And most people don't even know. Like, most people don't even know whether you like Donald Trump or not. It's ridiculous that states are trying to keep him off the ballot, and some actually are. And whether you agree with it or not, like, let the American people decide. That's the beauty of America. Let us decide. Let us have control again. And that's another one of those, like, where do we draw the line? Like, at some point, our founding fathers were sitting around, maybe in a basement, probably in a pub, and going, dude, fuck those people in Britain. They suck. And the other one goes, yeah, they do suck. What are we going to do about it? And one of them goes, well, why don't we get some guys together and ask what they think about, like, just not, doing it anymore. Yeah, that's a dumb, drunk bro version of history. But essentially, there was a group of men who decided to stand up and say, no, F that. I'm done with it. We're not doing it anymore. And our country is going in a direction that I don't think anyone's happy with. The left isn't with it. The right isn't with it. The middle isn't with it. Nobody is with it. No one's happy with the direction of the country right now. And if you say that you're happy with the direction of the country right now, you're crazy. Like, you're part of the problem. You are the problem. The education system is breaking down. The way that we interact with other human beings is breaking down even further than it already did. I don't like it. I don't have an answer to it. I'm not over here like, hey, I've got the answer. And I think that anyone who tells you they have an answer to it this complex is absolutely out of their fucking mind. There is not a simple solution to this when you have so many different cultures and so many different ideologies all trying to come together. And this is something that was kind of referenced in this whole interview, is this idea of, why do we see ourselves split up in these places? Like, can we eventually get to a place where we come together as people? I'm not talking about a one world government. I'm talking about a one world peace where we decide that, hey, we're all going to try our best to not hate each other. Like, that's it. Let's just not try to hate each other. But we're so hateable. Like, we are the worst things ever. There's the whole meme of, like, you'll go up and pet a random dog, but you'll ignore the person holding the leash. We will do that. We do not like each other because we're unlikable people. We have a lot of poor social behaviors and quirks and things that make us unlikable. And there are people out there that take pride or that enjoy hurting other people deliberately, not just pointing fun at the problem in general. Like, it's one thing to make fun of homelessness. It's another thing to make fun of a specific homeless person and, like, in front of them to their face. Like, you make a joke about an issue, not make it about a specific person. It has, you speak in generalities. You can, like, really good comedians can. Dude, I just sidetrack here. Tim Dillon was the funniest stand-up show I've ever been to. I've seen Dave Chappelle. I've seen Chris Rock. I've seen Shane Gillis. I've seen Cam. I've seen a lot of stand-up comedians. The funniest by far. Hands down. I don't want to even explain or even talk about any of the jokes that he had. I can't wait for the special to come out so that people can watch it. The funniest special I had ever seen in my entire life up to this point was Louis C.K.'s. I believe it was his self-titled special, maybe in like 2018. I'm blanking right now. Yeah. Anyways, I howled. I laughed until I cramped. I laughed until I couldn't breathe. I was hurting. I was legitimately hurting from Louis' stand-up special. And it was like that with Tim's. I was blown away. I thought Shane killed it when I saw him a couple weeks ago. Dude, this was a whole nother level. And we got to see some great openers for him too. So that was pretty cool. Back to kind of some more serious stuff. Okay. Crumbley thing. So I'm going to get through this kind of quick because I don't like talking about it. Look, I'm going to preface this with sharing a very vulnerable thing here. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but I'm going to talk about what it feels like to be a depressed teenager. We've all been there. When I was in like 7th grade, it was when I kind of realized I was fat. Now the problem is I had not gotten close to even starting puberty in like 7th grade. Not a hair in a place on my body where, you know, you want some hair when you want puberty to happen. Just not maturing real quickly. And I noticed that a lot of my classmates were. And, you know, with that comes just kids being kids. And you start to see other people developing and you're not developing. And then you start to get kind of self-conscious about it, being a late bloomer, but also being kind of fat myself. And I got really depressed because I was getting made fun of, and like they were my friends. I thought, you know, it is what it is, but I was really depressed, and I don't think they understood because I wasn't vocalizing it, that it hurt my feelings. I would just pretend that it didn't hurt, and then I would just go home and be miserable. I'd be so sad all the time because I was fat and I didn't know what to do. I was a fat 13-year-old, and my parents tried, but I was just fat, you know. Just what it is. A lot of fat kids. Hopefully they figure it out. Anyways, I was at a point where I was suicidal. I didn't want to be in school anymore. My parents could see that there was obviously something going on, and they pulled me aside, and I told them what was going on. I told them, like, I don't want to be alive anymore. Like, I hate life. I'm miserable. Like, why would I want to keep doing this thing that makes me so unhappy? It's still tough to think about, like, being at that really low moment and thinking that life sucked so bad at such a young age. I hadn't even really gone through anything. I was just fat and didn't like being made fun of. And I got to that point. Now this kid wasn't necessarily being bullied from what I can see here, but he was a very anxious kid and dealt with a lot of unhealthy mental thoughts. I don't want to say, you know, he's got a mental illness. Like, I'll leave that for the experts. They can diagnose him with whatever they want to diagnose him with. But, you know, he chose to take those actions out externally, and that's never acceptable. No matter where I was in my dark, deep place, hurting myself or someone else was never truly a viable option. It was never going to truly solve anything. Look, parents, pay attention to your kids. My parents did the best thing that they thought for me at the time. They pulled me out of school for a year. I went to work for my dad. I lost some weight. They did some research on dieting, and they did what they thought was best for me at the time. I lost some weight. I regained some confidence, made some money, got through a year. And it worked for me. And not every parent out there has the luxury of doing what my parents did for me, and I'm forever grateful for that. Because, like, look, I just have something a little bit off in my head. Like, I've been that way since I was a little kid. But parents, especially like kids, we're not kids anymore. I'm 33. Some of my friends have kids that are in elementary school getting, you know, moving their way up towards junior high very quickly. You know, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. They had kids early. And like, I think it's really important to just pay attention to that stuff. And look, if there's a kid who listens to this and you're really struggling with mental health, you need to talk to somebody. And if you don't have somebody to talk to, there are public resources, and you just need to trust that the person who you are speaking with wants the best for you. And if you don't feel that they do, then find someone who does. Because that's really what you need. You need someone that you can trust, that you can say those things that make you feel bad, like that you say them because you think them, and you know you shouldn't think those things, but you have to find some way to let it out. So I say all that to preface what I'm about to get into, because I don't want to talk about this, but this is very, very important. So Jennifer Crumbley, mother of a son who on November 30th, 2021, opened fire on his students at Oxford High School in Michigan. So she hasn't been sentenced yet, but she was found guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Each one of those each one of those could face up to 15 years. We'll see what they end up doing with that. This is the first time in American history that a parent has been found guilty for something like this, or at least to this extent. Like, the prosecutors essentially argued that she was negligent, and that her negligence made her liable for the killings that happened. Now, also, there was a father in the situation, James Crumbley. He will be on trial, I believe, in March. I don't see that happening. I think, in all honesty, that this will get appealed. It'll go to appellate court. After appellate court, it will. This could end up being something that we see in a Supreme Court rotation at some point. Like, this. Look. Okay, here, let me give you a quick brief facts of the case on why this is so important. So, mom said she never saw any signs of mental illness in her son, or anything other than anxiety surrounding school and his future, apparently after graduation. The parents also apparently had purchased this kid a firearm of his own. He was only allowed to use it at the range, and the father, James, was responsible for making sure that it was locked up safe and sound. So in the months leading up to the shooting, the shooter began expressing some signs of struggling with some severe mental health issues. He was texting his mom just some weird texts, like that he was seeing a demon in the house and that some objects or clothing in the house was kind of like floating around in the rooms. He admitted that he was hearing voices. His parents didn't really know what to do. This was later found out, but there was some writings in his journal from around this same time, a few months leading up to it, that he was referencing that he had no help for his mental problems and that it was going to cause him to shoot up the school. So, like, he was planning it in a way. Like, mental health issues or not, like, he was obviously cognizant enough to realize that he wanted to take action on these things, and that the action he wanted to take was shooting up the school. Not sure if the parents knew about what was in the journal or not. I didn't necessarily see anything in kind of the case documents that showed that they knew exactly that. But look, this is the craziest part. This is like literally the craziest part of the whole thing. On the day of the shooting, his parents were called to the school, and it was over a drawing that their son had made on one of his pieces of homework that he turned in. And the piece of paper had a picture of a firearm, a person, blood. And I wrote down the quote, word for word: "The thoughts won't stop. Help me." This was the day of the shooting. Parents are at the school. Administration is at the school. Here's the craziest part about this. At no point did the school administration ask these parents, does your son have access to a weapon or a firearm? And at no point did they search the kid. At this point, look, I understand the search and seizure laws, but at no point was there an ask. The parents are on campus. They can ask the parents, hey, can we search your kid's backpack? And they can legally say yes for that kid. At no point did this happen. So the school at this point effed up pretty royally bad. 2 hours later, first shots happen. The school administration and the parents felt that it would be in the kid's best interest that he remain around his peers at school instead of going home and being alone. So mom's found guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, could face up to 60 years. Doubt it. I think this case gets appealed. It's obvious. But this sets the worst freaking case law, potentially. Look, everyone thinks what they think about me, and that is okay. Let me tell you what I think, though, because the reason why I think this is important is because I have struggled with it, because everyone has 2 parts of them. Like, there is a dualistic element to life that is unexplainable. And I have a part of me that is a Just imagine, like Yosemite Sam, like gun toting redneck, and then like guy with a soybean latte and a beanie and a nose ring and like a complete douchey hipster liberal lefty. That is me. I have both of those personalities within me. I grew up in California, but don't tread on me. Like, it's weird. I can't explain it. So part of me says, I think it's pretty effed up that this mom was found liable for this because it sets a bad precedent. It's bad case law. Parents being held liable for the actions of their kids. It's bad. Now, the other part of me looks at the case evidence and goes, yeah, but like, dude, this is pretty obvious. The parents bought this kid a gun. Like, yes, they did. I forgot to mention that. They bought him a gun. The gun that was used for the shooting. This whole thing is just effed up because the more that I think about it, the more it brings me to this point where I'm broken for this kid. I'm broken for this school. I'm broken for this family, the family of all the people that this happened to, because it's such a breakdown in our culture, in our society, in the way that we govern each other, in the way that we respect each other, the way that we love our neighbors, because our thoughts and our feelings are more important to us than anything, apparently. So we let those get in the way of how we treat other people. We don't let that come second. Apparently, that is the new thing. We treat people like objects, and that's really where the first part of this podcast comes from, where it leads into this, is that, look, okay, so let me get back to it. Part of my brain says it's effed up. Part of my brain says this parents deserve to be responsible, and parents should be more responsible for their kids. And if parents were more responsible for their kids and stuff like this wouldn't happen. So it's tough because I don't know where we go with this as a country. I think that it'll be interesting to see where this ends up after, if there is an appeal and an appeal is made, and it's granted and it goes up to the next level. Obviously they have to have grounds to appeal on. They can't just appeal a decision. Well, I mean, I guess technically you can't even come up with pretty much anything, but if an appeal is granted on this, I think the father's case gets pushed back. They're wanting to see what happens with this before they try the father, in all honesty, because it's a slam dunk case if she ends up being found guilty when it's all said and done for the father. It's going to be a hard sell to a jury if there is precedent in case law that says that parents can't be held responsible for this stuff. So more will come out about this. All in all, I think that we as people should be a little bit more concerned with our fellow man. I say this to people quite often, that I genuinely believe that the reason why we are where we are is because we dehumanize each other. And it starts early on. One of the places where I see people being dehumanized the most is in just the day-to-day transactions of like nickel and diming each other, trying to scam people, trying to rip people off. Like, it's in our monetary transactions. And like, what ends up what I tell people is, if you respected everyone's money the way that you respect your money, you wouldn't do that to people. If you respected your body the way you respect other people, or if you respected other people's bodies the way that you respected your body, you wouldn't do those things. Like, if you had care for yourself, you would care for others. The golden rule. Like, it brings me back always to those things where it's like, love your neighbor as yourself. I don't know what we end up doing as a people, as a whole? I don't think there's an easy answer. I do think that these next few years are pivotal. I'm hopeful, especially after, like, the reason why that Putin interview is so important is it actually gave me some hope. It gave me some hope that if we get the right person in office, and that's not to say that one of these three candidates isn't the right person. Maybe they are. Like I said, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we have a winner between one of these people that can get us back on track, because I do genuinely believe that the good, the inherent good that is out there, there is good. Evil exists, good exists inherently. I believe that, but I believe that the good will overtake because it feels better. And I think we as humans, there is a certain amount of power in evil, but it leaves you feeling empty. It leaves you feeling hopeless. There's enough good out there, I think, that we can turn things around, and I'm very hopeful. As far as an update is as to where I am in life, so I started eating better. I've been trying to get down here and exercise. I just have been out of town for a week. Today is my first day back in town in a little bit, and I went on a hike today. It was 65 degrees in February. Gosh, I hate global warming. Wink, wink. Kind of, look, yeah, I'm not going to get into it. It's hard to be angry about it. There was one of the comedians who opened up for Tim Dillon, who was like, as a flaming liberal, it's really hard to walk outside in January and it'd be 60 degrees and me be mad about it, or at least have to pretend to be mad about it. And, you know, it's one of those things where we know it's a problem, but can we just enjoy today and worry about it tomorrow? Can we make it tomorrow's problem? I'm gonna call it a podcast. I'm not gonna go into too much more. I really just kind of wanted to talk about these two things. Look, I want to know what you think about this. Please comment on it. You know, if you have my phone number, just text me. Like, I'm pretty small. I don't expect that this is going to turn into like some huge thing. So I'd love to talk to people about this though, because it's important. I would love to know other people's opinions. It's not so much that I've made my opinion on either one of these things, or even the Elon thing, putting chips in people's brains. It's crazy. I just think we need to talk more. I think people need to sit down and talk more and have these discussions. I would love to have had someone able to sit with me across and actually discuss these, but it's hard to find someone who's willing to sit down and talk about these things. No one wants to stick their neck out. But as you can see, like, to stick your neck out there, you don't have to take a side. You don't have to take an opinion. You can just talk about it and express your thoughts and feelings and what you're struggling with. Maybe you shouldn't, though. You know, maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. Hey, let's not Midwest goodbye this podcast. Let's just call it a day. Goodbye, everybody. Let's make it real awkward.